At long last, back to pyramids. You are listening to Brothers of the Serpent podcast.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, angels and demons, monsters and serpents, and scriptards, because we know you're listening out there.
What's up?
This is Brothers of the Serpent podcast, coming to you not live from the $50 Dynasty / Brothers of the Serpent studio, the 10 by 10 by 10, a tangent cube of science, nestled amongst the dusty bones of an ancient seabed high atop the Everest Plateau. This is the eve of New Year's Eve, final days of 2019, and the end of the second decade of the 21st century, which is crazy to think
Pretty
about.
serious, yeah. Wow.
We are finishing up the decade. We're
Deep
in the last
in solar minimum
Yeah.
as well.
That's right.
It's about to be a new year for the sun.
That's true. It's about to flip. So the Watcher is frantically getting his stuff together. He said he's going to be with us on this show. He's not here yet, but
I
he
don't
will
believe
be.
him.
Yeah. We'll believe it when we hear it, see it. But so let's go ahead and start with Space Weather News. Found that key. From spaceweather.com. New Year's aurora forecast. A minor stream of solar wind flowing from a southern hole in the sun's atmosphere could graze Earth's magnetic field on January 1st or 2nd. Geomagnetic storms are not expected, however. The impact could spark the first polar auroras of 2020. Also, once-in-a-lifetime stratospheric clouds. A spectacular outbreak of polar stratospheric clouds, or PSCs, is underway around the Arctic Circle. This is a once-in-a-lifetime event, says Chad Blakely, who runs the Lights Over Lapland Aurora tour service in Abisko, Sweden. No question, this is the best that any of us have ever seen. Tour guide Paige Ellis took this video showing the clouds' aurora-like colors on December 29th, and there is a link to a video. Look at those clouds.
Wow.
They were so intense that lots of the tourists on the ground thought they were looking at daytime auroras. I had to explain that they were actually clouds in the stratosphere, says Blakely. Polar stratospheric clouds are newsworthy because normally the stratosphere has no clouds at all. Home to the ozone layer, the stratosphere is arid and almost always transparent. Only when the temperature drops to a staggeringly cold minus 85 degrees Celsius can sparse water molecules assemble themselves into icy stratospheric clouds. PSCs are far more rare than auroras. Local villagers in both Abisko and Kiruna, who are more than 70 years old, confirmed they have never seen anything of the size, scale, or intensity of these clouds, says Blakely. At one point, I would say that close to 25% of the sky was filled with the clouds. PSCs in previous winters have been closer to 1 or 2%. The outbreak continued on December 30th. Today, I got to see some of the brightest PSCs I've ever seen during all of my years of watching the sky, reports Goran Strand, who sends this picture from Jämtland, Sweden. And there's another picture of him. See him?
Oh, yeah.
And you guys can find the video and the pictures on spaceweather.com. He says, they were so bright, they even lit up the surrounding landscape. Yeah, they are really bright. PSCs are intensely colorful because they are made of a special type of ice. High-altitude sunlight shining through microscopic crystals only approximately 10 nanometers across, produce a bright iridescent glow, unlike the lesser iridescence of ordinary tropospheric clouds. Stay tuned for updates as the outbreak continues. And current conditions, solar wind speed is 301.9 kilometers per second, and the density is 8.0 protons per cubic centimeter. Does it make sense? It's been warm here. It's warmed up. We were doing our Christmas barbecue in short sleeve shirts and stuff. It was crazy. Yeah. It's toasty up here on the plateau. Okay. Got a few emails here and some mentions. Let's see. So David says challenge accepted on the mild tobacco.
All right.
He says, hey, Snake Brothers, thanks for the mention and glad you enjoyed the explosion. I guess he means the exploded view. As for the tobacco, this merits some thought. Off the cuff, I am carrying, at this moment, a 3-pinch pouch of Dunhill's Ready Rub. If Pipes and Cigars has that still in stock, try it out, maybe. Part of the appeal is that it is a temporary, extinct blend that is still in shops sometimes. If Pipes and Cigars is out, I know another, slightly more expensive to ship from place for the Dunhill. Considering that discovering a new tobacco that is also extinct is a melancholy pastime and that the enjoyment of melancholy is genuine but has its limits, I will enjoy looking among my usual suspects for your request. Indeed, the change of pace palate cleansing blend is a good idea for pipe rotation anyway.
Right on.
He says, thanks, more soon, David.
I guess so it's normal for one to get mad at their tobacco after a while.
Yeah. Rotate that palate. I also love that you find a new tobacco that's great, but it's extinct. He's like,
right.
It's a melancholy pleasure.
Yeah.
Let's see. This is from Jake. He says, wishing you all a glorious solar resurrection festival. I have finally burned through your back catalog. It's fantastic work and long may it continue. Few important things. 1, you gotta clone Randall. 2, keep derping them tarts. 3, keep laughing. I have sampled many shows. I'm very selective, and yours absolutely murders it. It is authentic and lighthearted with large spoons of clever. Well done, and thank you. I love how you use a radio format minus ads, plus your own fly music. Highly amusing. Podcasts,
Thanks a lot, man.
yeah, podcasts are valuable to me because I'm a painter. I do a lot of abstract stuff in oil paint, and this leaves my ears free to absorb thousands of hours of informative or not content. You can find my work on Instagram or Facebook under Art Paintings by Jake, and safely assume that your show was going while I did many of the most recent ones. Thanks for all the brain food. Nom nom. It's a chilled out Christmas for me. Attractive my home here in Bath, UK. Also home to Graham Hancock. My brother bumped into him in the street the other day, and I told him I was a big fan. So Graham goes ahead and gets my bro to film him wishing me a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Wow.
Holy crap. What a dude that man is. Anyway, it's a city built on geothermal hotspots and ancient sacred places, full of Masonic sphinxes and obelisks in the heart of crop circle country not far from Avebury, Stonehenge, and the Salisbury weapons range, as well as the supposedly enormous subterranean military city beneath the nearby town of Box. Cheers for all the great work and Merry Christmas to you from a listener nestled on a damp and cloudy landmass catastrophically isolated from Europe at the end of the last ice age.
Awesome.
That's a great email, Jake. Thank you so much.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, and so I'm trying not to dox you here, but I want people to be able to look up your art if they want, but I don't want to say your last name on the show. So let me know if I can do that, and then I'll say it. But you said to look you up on Facebook, and I assume people will want to look you up. But since I don't know if I can say your last name on the show, anyway,
Just dox him.
just do it. Jake Shepard, and that's Sheppard. So look up his art, people.
Yeah, he's an artist. He's
Right.
got to have his name out there.
Right.
Put it out there.
Doxed.
Doxed.
Now they know where you live and what your name is.
Duly doxed.
This is from Roddy. He is the, remember him, Roddy Frey Mammal?
Yes.
Yeah. He says, Dear Ophidian siblings, was just listening to your podcast of the Giza Power Plant, and I'm surprised that, given your musical proclivities, you guys haven't figured out that the Giza pyramids, with their powerful acoustic abilities, are nothing more than the very first ancient Egyptian guitar amps. This was way back when rock music was actually made from rocks. Just look at the facts. Long-haired wigs, shiny gold bling, eye makeup. The Egyptian pharaohs were the original big hair bands. Unfortunately, the world made a sudden shift to acoustic temple music and a cappella epic poetry, and the pyramids were abandoned like so much ancient Woodstock trash. Thank you in advance. Sincerely, Roddy Mammal.
That's genius. The first rock amps. They must have turned the Great Pyramid all the way up to 11.
I know. I was
And
gonna
the casing stones fell off.
All
the
the way.
rectifier,
Yeah.
the rectifier chamber exploded.
That's right.
And yeah, man, that must have been a great show.
This is from John. He says, I recently found you guys from your interview of Walter Bosley, and I am hooked. Man, I have to say, that was a great freaking show, that one with Walter. Mm-hmm. That guy can tell a story. He says, I have been catching up on your material. I also wanted to say it was great to hear about Ringing Rocks County Park being mentioned. The park was a 5-minute bike ride from where I grew up. Also, the NPR bit you guys do is so on spot, and it made me laugh. I was hoping I could ask, is it possible for you to do the space weather spot in the NPR style in the future? What could possibly go wrong? Keep up the great work, Snakes! Yeah, I'll try that sometime. Kyle, well, I have to let Kyle do an NPR thing first because I shut him down last time, and now he's never going to let me do any impersonations until he gets to do his NPR impersonation. So he'll have to. Maybe he can do Space Weather News and do it NPR style.
It'll happen. Eventually I'll get another article from NPR.
Yeah. Angie says, have y'all asked Randall Carlson why the book is open now? I'm thinking it's because we have moved into the age of Aquarius, but I know nothing, LOL. Even if that is the case, what are we supposed to do with that knowledge? Angie?
That's a great question.
These emails are still empty. You put all of the text in the subject. Yeah, that's the subject of the email.
She's kissing you, man.
Yeah. She's just giving me crap. She's like, here you go, another empty email with an enormous title.
That's genius.
Yeah. So, Angie, we did ask Randall, and he says he's sort of cagey about it. About the book.
He didn't say that, right?
What?
He just is that way about it.
Yeah. Like, I asked him, why is the book open? And he doesn't really give a straight answer.
Right.
He said multiple things. He says, well, it's open in some cases, he says. It's not always an open book. And then I asked him, well, what dictated how did people find out that the book is open or whatever? And he just, I don't know. I haven't gotten a straight answer from him yet, so I don't really understand what he's trying to say. So I'll keep pushing him on it.
I think that may actually still be secret.
Yes.
Like the book may still be closed on whether or not the book or why the book is open or closed.
Right.
And who decides?
Yeah, because he definitely.
That's what it seems like.
He definitely. He does it in a very Randall way. He tells you a bunch of stuff, but doesn't answer the question. So, at least, or maybe my understanding is not good enough to understand what he's saying. But when I've asked him, he doesn't agree that the book is open. First of all, he's like, well, it's open in some cases. Anyway, yes. So we have asked him, Angie, and we're still working on that. Get back to you. Okay, this is from Mark. He says, fact check. Hello. I'm sorry, but I'm a bit of a truth prick.
Sorry, hold on.
Okay.
The Watcher's with us now.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't have the window open. Sorry, Watcher.
Oh, yeah, blasted a power cord and blew the nose off the Sphinx. That was the Giza Power amps. The Giza Power amps, man. That's what it is.
And then he says he asked him if it had to do with the changing of the age and the retelling of the story. He said that's a big part of it, I think, and then smiled and asked me if I had anything else.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that. Like, that's what he does. Like, if you make a guess, he gives you this sort of, oh, yeah, well, I mean, that's part of it, So, yeah. And then he asks you if you have any other guesses. Because he's not going to answer you. That's what I'm saying. He won't tell you. All right, back to Mark here. He says, hello, but I'm sorry. I'm a bit of a truth prick. Found you guys a little bit ago and have been listening to past episodes. In episode 44, you mentioned that Lake Titicaca is a saltwater lake. It's not. It may have been in the past, but today it's considered a freshwater lake. The salinity is rising at present due to the drawing off of freshwater for human use. He gives a link here, and he says, carry on. Mark, you're right. It is not a saltwater lake. And we know that. We have talked about how
we thought it used
to be saltwater because it has marine fauna in it.
Like sea ponies.
Yes. Yeah, so, but you're right, it isn't saltwater, and if we gave that impression, we didn't mean to, because it is a freshwater lake. It just has, there's indications that the source of it was saltwater, because it has marine fauna, yeah. So thanks for that. No problem with fact checks, man.
Yeah, and if a watcher misses it, make sure you get it.
That's right.
Nail us.
All right, Shannon. Shannon says, she gave us some thoughts about the feud that prevented Mr. Gantenbrink from returning with his team. And she was basically saying, like, it's, I'm not going to read the whole email here, but she thinks that it could be multiple things. But in the end, she's like, maybe it's risking ancient alien disclosure or proof that it's not a tomb or temple, but something mega brilliant like a time capsule, epic healing center, power plant, pollution busting vacuum, or a 7G mind control HQ. Which is like, yeah. Thus exposing that our ancestors were not Johnsons with mere copper chisels, but uber technological geniuses. Hard to believe for many, I'm sure. UK posse, Shannon. So, yeah, I agree with that.
So the question is, why was Ganton Brink not allowed to continue his...
And why did he say, it was a feud between believers and non-believers that kept him from coming back? And she's just trying to guess here that and I totally think she's right. Politics and religion and a whole bunch of other things are part of this.
Standard model.
Yeah.
Which is, it's exciting that the Scan Pyramids project is going on right now, but I'm also trying to keep in mind that these discoveries are controlled.
Yeah.
So it sort of makes me skeptical as to what we're really going to learn from the Scan Pyramids project.
Yeah. They got real mad the first time they released information. Yeah. So they probably, the fact that they were allowed to continue.
Didn't Zahi also say, and we already knew it was there anyway?
Yeah, basically, yeah. He claimed it was filled with sand.
Yeah.
But maybe it had the Iron Throne of Khufu in it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, ridiculous. Yeah, it is.
The Iron Throne of Khufu is a cool idea, but,
It's still same false model.
All right, last mention here. Ricky, holy crap, bro. Your email was awesome. You put some personal stuff in it, so I'm not going to read it on the show, but thank you so much, dude. Like that, it meant a lot to us to read that, I have to say. So thank you so much. Keep listening, keep writing us, and write us stuff we can read, because we will. If you put personal details in an email, I'll be hesitant to read it on the show, because I'm trying not to give out that kind of information. But dude, I just wanted to tell you that was a great email. So thank you so much.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
Warm and fuzzies.
Yeah, warm and fuzzies. Glad you're out there, man. But yeah, I'll read the very end. He says, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, all the best for the new year to come. Looking forward to more epic content from you, Snake Bros.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, man. All right. What you got?
I have a sun probe update. I jumped the gun, I guess. I was like, man, I haven't heard anything about the sun probe in a while.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is Hello Venus. Parker Solar Probe makes second planetary flyby. This is on space.com. A story by Megan Bartels. And I'm going to skip some of this stuff in the beginning here. Okay, the Parker Solar Probe will gather its second batch of data from Venus. It actually did, probably. It was December 26th as the probe made its closest approach to the planet at 1:14 p.m. Eastern Time. Of course, Parker Solar Probe's instruments are designed to study a star, not a planet.
So I was going to say, how can it even see the planet?
They focus mostly on plasma, the hot mess of charged particles that makes up the sun. Traditionally, planetary scientists want very different instruments on their spacecraft. Radar devices to map the surface, spectrometers to identify chemicals and the like. But that doesn't make plasma data superfluous. 2 dedicated Venus missions have carried plasma detectors to the world. NASA's Pioneer Venus Orbiter and the European Space Agency's Venus Express. But those spacecraft were built decades ago. The stuff that they were able to put on Parker Solar Probe takes measurements faster, better, stronger, and the whole deal. Said Shannon Curry.
Better, faster, stronger.
Said Shannon Curry, a planetary physicist of the University of California at Berkeley. And she and her colleagues have plenty of questions about Venus that plasma data could help answer. For today's flyby, the team is particularly interested in a feature called the bow shock, or bow shock, where the planet's neighborhood meets the solar wind of charged particles that constantly streams off the sun. The precise location of the bow shock varies based on how active the sun is, which changes over the course of the 11-year solar cycle. Quote, we're not positive it'll cross the shock or not. But that's actually important because it'll tell us physically where the shock is at this point in the solar cycle, Curry said. It tells us a lot about what the sun is doing, and the shock is a nice gauge of that, end quote. And the environment on either side of the bow shock differs dramatically. Outside the shock is the pristine solar wind and the effects of solar storms. But if Parker's Solar Probe crosses inside the shock, scientists should be able to better understand how quickly Venus is losing its atmosphere. Quote, the magnetic fields pile up and actually actually sort of drag the atmosphere off. It's almost like a slingshot, Curry said. That's one of the biggest ways the atmosphere of Venus gets removed, the sun's magnetic field lines, end quote. Venus scientists are interested in a more detailed measurement of atmosphere loss because atmospheric pressure affects what state water takes. It's Earth's even 1 bar of pressure that helps keep our oceans liquid. At some point, maybe liquids could exist again on Venus, or maybe they did before and we just don't know. But the Venus atmospheric loss measurements will really crank up during Solar Parker Probe's next 2 flybys in July 2020 and February 2021. These 2 visits will carry the spacecraft right through what scientists call the tail of Venus, which is where the atmosphere slips away from the planet. Quote,
yeah, but, you know, BelikovskyWasWrong.com.
Yep. Quote, those are going to be the super important ones. I think these first 2 are almost, not like the dress rehearsals, but it's really important to make sure we get everything right. Flybys 3 and 4 will tell us mountains about atmospheric escape at Venus, and then a lot of other dynamics we just don't understand, Curry said. She also said the Parker Solar Probe may be able to solve a long-standing mystery about the surface of Venus, whether the planet sports small, patchy crustal magnetic fields. So far, Mars is the only planet where scientists have seen this phenomenon. It's like a little magnetic rash on its belly, like little bubbles with magnetic fields, Curry said. But no one's gotten a close enough look at Venus to check for them. We might not see them, and they might not even be there. We just don't know, she said. The results of the first Venus flyby, which took place in October 2018, proved the importance of practice. During the pass, the spacecraft ended up shutting its instruments down, convinced that they were pointing straight at the sun, which they aren't meant to do. Quote, we're just looking at Venus, not the sun. Venus is just a super bright planet the way it reflects, Curry said. That's why the instruments got confused.
Yeah, high albedo Venus.
So she said the project team believes it's figured out how to keep that error from happening again. And the Venus work is benefiting from a science bonus discovered by the main Parker Solar Probe team, which realized that the spacecraft could gather and send back more data than originally anticipated. Curry had been willing to fight for even just an hour of data on a flyby. During the first maneuver, the team got about 10 hours of observations.
Wow.
Curry is hoping to build similar Venus collaborations with European Japanese team running the Bepi Colombo mission en route to Mercury and with Europe's Solar Orbiter mission. Like Parker Solar Probe, both of these spacecraft also need to make Venus flybys to reach their targets. Quote, these are the only measurements of Venus we're going to have for, frankly, it might be the next decade, Curry said. We have nothing planned to go to Venus. And the missions NASA is considering don't carry plasma instruments like Parker Solar Probe does, so questions like atmospheric loss might go unanswered even then. Combine those 2 factors, and the mission's accidental planetary science looks even more precious. With Venus science, Curry said, anybody who gets data is a hero.
All right.
So,
Hey, I'm proud of her and that journalist for so many times being able to say, I don't know, we don't know.
Yeah.
That's pretty rare in science journalism.
I know.
Yeah, so the watcher asks if it's related to the wake of the sun.
It is.
It is. So,
cool.
We're going to get back into the Giza Power Plant here. What time we got?
We got 7 minutes.
Yeah.
I could do another story.
You could.
Maybe.
Yeah, go ahead.
You sure?
Yeah, just do another story, and then we'll take a break.
Well, I only prepped one because we were gonna.
I mean, we can just take the break now and start on the power plant.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
All right, no more stories. Go to bed. Story's over.
All right, we'll be right back with Giza Power Plant Part 3.
are back with 3 hours of excellence. 0 mistakes. Always. For the entire 2 hours.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, did I say?
Yeah, you did. It's all right.
3 hours.
0 mistakes.
0 mistakes.
All right. So you guys may have heard from the end of the last episode, we have a Discord server now. It's very own Snake Bros Discord. So we have our own troll room now. So everybody. So what I've been doing, this is a tradition that's been going on for at least 2 weeks. Which is right before we start podcasting. I'll just ask, all the Discord chatters, the trolls, for thoughts, comments, insights, and taunts. So here we got a couple things. Brando says, "Are all pyramids built with the same level of precision?" Nay. Were there any copycat pyramids built that non-standard modelers would agree were built for tombs? Yes. But they're usually called mastabas. And even some of those, it's iffy on whether those burials were intrusive.
Well,
but there are pyramids around the world that were, made as tombs, but they're usually not the giant ones.
Yeah, according to the Giza Power Plant book by Christopher Dunn.
Mark Lehner.
Yeah,
the 80
he quotes Mark Lehner that there are at least 80 pyramids in Giza
in
Egypt, and not a single one of them has been found to have an original burial.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But it's very possible that a lot of pyramids in other places could be copycats. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to tell what's a copycat of what, Like, I think the mud brick ones are probably copycats of the older... and then it's hard to tell. I don't know. Like, you've got that one at My Doom where the whole outside fell off and it's a different structure on the inside,
Yeah.
So,
but the precision question is a good one because if we're going to look at the Great Pyramid and say, well, it's built so precisely, it must be a power plant. And the question is, what are all the other ones that are not built precisely?
Yeah, that's right. And there are, like Dunn says that the granite coffer, the quote-unquote sarcophagus in the second pyramid, Khafre's pyramid, is far more precise of an object than the one in the Great Pyramid.
True.
So there's something.
But the one in the Great Pyramid is made of a chocolate-colored granite that's nowhere found, nowhere in Egypt.
No one knows where it came from at all. It's never been identified, the source. The source has never been identified. Atlantis, basically.
Right.
But yeah, he says, so if so, how did the precision and quality compare to the Great Pyramid? So yeah,
in Atlantis, there were 3 types of rocks: chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry.
It was very cosmopolitan. Okay, Brandon, History Shift, says, is this the last episode or is there one more? I don't know. What about non-Egyptian pyramids? What about them? Like, I don't know. Were they power plants or something else?
I kind of think that maybe they all were some type of... I tend to believe that they all had a similar function.
Yeah.
And if Dunn is correct in his idea of the sort of earth resonance type amplifier power plant idea, then the more precisely you build it, the better transducer it's going to be. So that wouldn't make less precisely built ones not work necessarily.
Yeah.
It just may not work as well.
Right. The watcher is pointing out that it's Neapolitan is the name of the 3-flavored ice cream. Yeah. Cosmopolitan is a drink made with cranberry juice and vodka.
Thank you, watcher.
One of them's about...
See?
Yeah.
It's really important that we have you here.
Yeah. Let's see.
Oh my God.
And Ryan posts a couple of stuff in here in the troll room, but he asks, what about trying to work the 2 new voids the Scam Pyramids project found into Dunn's final theory?
I want to ask him about that.
We're going to try to do that, yeah. Okay, so let's get to the book here. Because we are on chapter 6, The Coral Castle mystery. He says, my company recently installed a hydraulic press that weighs 65 tons. In order to lift it and lower it through the roof, they had to bring in a special crane. The crane was brought to the site in pieces, transported from 80 miles away over a period of 5 days. After 15 semi-trailer loads, the crane was finally assembled and ready for use. As the press...
Semi-trailer loads.
Semi-trailer.
Yeah.
Semi-trailer loads. Yeah, you're right.
Like an 18-wheeler.
Right, yeah. Is that one word? Yeah. As the press was lowered, the hydraulic press. Yeah, as the I was like, is he talking about the journalists? As the press was lowered into the specially prepared pit. Yes, that's what we need to do with the press. I asked one of the riggers about the heaviest weight he had lifted. He claimed that it was a 110-ton nuclear power plant vessel. When I related to him the 70 and 200-ton weights of the blocks of stone used inside the Great Pyramid in the Valley Temple, he expressed amazement and disbelief at the primitive methods Egyptologists claim were used.
Yeah.
I thought that was a cool observation there. Okay, so he goes to Coral Castle and he's looking into Leedskalnin and his stuff. And he says Leedskalnin was a student of the universe. Within his castle walls, he had a 22-ton obelisk, a 22-ton moon block, a 23-ton Jupiter block, a Saturn block, a 9-ton gate, a coral rocking chair that weighed 3 tons, and numerous other items. A huge 30-ton block, which he considered to be his major achievement, was crowned with a gable-shaped rock. Leedskalnin somehow single-handedly created and moved these massive objects without the benefit of cranes and other heavy machinery, a feat that astounds many engineers and technologists who compare these achievements with those employed by workers handling similar weights in industry today. Leedskalnin's castle was not always located in Homestead, Florida. He thought he had found his Shangri-La near Florida City and was happily working away on his rock garden until one night several thugs attacked him. Being a small man, he was an easy mark for these cowards, and he became a changed man after that trauma. Such was his concern that he became obsessed with moving his rock garden to a safer area. To assist him in the effort, he contracted with a local truck driver to haul his large rocks from Florida City to Homestead. As they prepared to load a 20-ton obelisk onto the truck, Leedskalnin asked for the truck driver to leave him alone for a moment. Once out of sight, the truck driver heard a loud crash. Hurrying back to his truck, he was stopped in his tracks by the sight before him, hardly believing his eyes. He had returned just in time to see Leedskalnin dusting off his hands the huge obelisk, now loaded and weighting down the flatbed.
That's crazy.
Once in Homestead, the trucker was asked to leave his flatbed overnight and return in the morning. He was doubtful that Leedskalnin would be able to fulfill his promise that the obelisk would be off the truck and erected in the place he had set out for it. It's a good thing the truck driver did not bet money against Leedskalnin's ability to fulfill his word, because when he returned the following morning, Leedskalnin had moved the monolith into position just as he had promised. For his stupendous feats of construction engineering, Leedskalnin received attention not only from engineers and technologists, but from the United States government, who paid him a visit, hoping to be enlightened. Leedskalnin received the officials gracefully, but they left none the wiser. In 1952, falling ill and on his last legs, Leedskalnin checked himself into the hospital and slipped away from this life, taking his secrets about moving massive objects with him.
Okay, I have a conspiracy.
Okay.
The reason why he didn't give the secrets away was because of the visit from the government.
Yeah.
Not that the government, quote unquote, left empty-handed.
Right.
Right.
Good point.
So they have his technology.
There was a Men in Black visit. You're not going to talk about this. Yeah. Yep. All right. So Dunn says, I first visited Coral Castle in 1982 while vacationing in Florida. It soon became clear to me that Leedskalnin's claim was accurate. He did indeed know some secrets. He's talking about the claim that Leedskalnin famously claimed to know the secrets of the pyramid builders.
Right.
So he says Leedskalnin's claim was accurate. He did indeed know some secrets, perhaps even the very ones used by the ancient Egyptians. I returned to Homestead again in April 1995 to refresh my memory and specifically to closely examine a device that, in 1992, fueled a discussion between an engineer colleague, Stephen Deffenbaugh, and myself. I think that's how you say that name. I'm probably totally getting it wrong. Our discussion resulted in a speculation as to the methods that Leeds-Kalnin had used. Leeds-Kalnin took issue with modern science's understanding of nature. He flatly stated that scientists are wrong.
I like this guy.
Yeah. His concept of nature was simple. All matter consists of individual magnets, and it is the movement of these magnets within materials and through space that produces measurable phenomena, that is, magnetism and electricity and so on. Whether Leeds-Kalnin was right or wrong in his assertions, from his simple premise he was able to devise a means to single-handedly elevate and maneuver large weights, which would be impossible using conventional methods. There is speculation that he was employing electromagnetism to eliminate or reduce the gravitational pull of the Earth. These speculations are entertained by some and scoffed at by others whose feet are firmly planted in the quote-unquote real world. While at Coral Castle, I commented to a lady standing in Leeds-Kalnin's workshop that it was quite a feat he had performed, and asked if she had any idea how he had done it. Fixing me with a measured look, she said, "Through the application of physics and mechanics, such work can be done." Somehow sensing my esoteric bent, she commented that Thor Heyerdahl had dispatched wild speculation about how the huge stone statues on Easter Island were put in place when he reenacted the work by carving, moving, and erecting one. Being alone and wanting a photograph taken of myself in Leeds-Kalnin's workshop, I did not want to be argumentative. He wanted her to take a picture of him, so he didn't want to get in a fight. Smiling, I handed her the camera and did not point out that Heyerdahl, unlike Leeds-Kalnin, had had an ample supply of willing and healthy natives. They provided sufficient manpower to satisfy the physical requirements for conventionally moving such large weights, even on rollers, and cantilevering them up into an upright position. Heyerdahl was an energetic man, but using those methods he could not have done it alone. Moreover, Heyerdahl merely demonstrated that the job could be done using one particular method. Anyone who has worked in manufacturing knows that there are many ways of doing things. To devise a means to perform a given work and present it as the only way that such work could be done gives little credit to those who either might know of a better way or might look for a better method and succeed in finding one. When analyzing ancient engineering feats and being faced with explaining technically difficult tasks, Egyptologists and archaeologists typically throw in more time and more people using primitive, simple tools and manpower. Unlike those conventional arguments regarding ancient civilizations, in the case of Ed Leeds-Kalnin, we cannot impose the view that the work was done employing masses of people, for it is well documented that Leeds-Kalnin worked alone.
Yeah, I think I have that guy's manuscript on magnetism and stuff.
Supposedly, he's got a couple of little experiments you can run in there. We need to try those out.
Yeah. Put the cube to work.
Yeah. Science and tinkering.
That's right.
But the equipment and techniques Leeds-Kalnin used, I would suggest, go beyond what we know as the state of the art. What technique did he use? Can we regain the knowledge he took with him to his grave? What follows is a speculation about the techniques Leeds-Kalnin may have used. It follows his basic premise regarding the nature of electricity and magnetism and leads to a conclusion that, I believe, has some semblance of logic. This speculation followed some basic rules for brainstorming. Those that follow and that might eventually reveal the secret should do the same. First, there is no such thing as a stupid idea, and second, what we have been taught about the subject may not necessarily apply when seeking and hopefully finding a real solution. So he goes on to talk about concepts of anti-gravity, and he had to change his thinking on what anti-gravity was. And you have to change your idea, because, like, the idea of anti-gravity is based on the idea that we have an idea of what gravity is in the first place.
Yeah.
That it's some kind of wave that you can cancel out, right?
Yeah. And he pointed out, we employ anti-gravity all the time just by standing up.
That's right. He goes into the Earth's magnetic field. Okay, so he says, a well-known method for creating magnetism, I thought this was really cool, for creating magnetism in an iron bar is to align the bar with the Earth's magnetic field and strike the bar with a hammer. This blow vibrates the atoms in the bar and allows them to be influenced by the Earth's magnetic field. The result is that when the vibration stops, a significant number of the atoms have aligned themselves within that magnetic field. Was this the method that Leedskalnin was using? It is a simple concept, and when I observed the devices in Leedskalnin's workshop, I could easily imagine the application of vibration and electromagnetism. His flywheel for creating electricity remains motionless, for the most part, until inquisitive tourists like me come along and give it a spin. After giving it a few revolutions, I realized that something was missing. The narrative I had heard, while browsing around the castle, described Leedskalnin as using this device to create electricity to power his electric light bulbs. It was claimed that Leedskalnin did not have electricity, but I could not imagine this device being a useful and continuing source of power, considering that Leedskalnin used only his right arm to turn the wheel. On closer examination of the piece, I found that the whole assembly was actually an old 4-cylinder crankcase. His flywheel was mounted on the front end of the crankshaft and consisted of bar magnets that were sandwiched between two plates, the upper plate being a ring gear. To give it weight and to solidify the entire assembly, Leedskalnin had encased the bar magnets in cement. It then occurred to me that the photo of Leedskalnin with his hand on the crank handle, which is attached to the end of the shaft, may not accurately represent his entire operation. It is possible that Leedskalnin was using the crank handle to start a reciprocating engine, which is now missing, which attached to one of the throws on the crankshaft. He would then be able to walk away and leave the flywheel running. So at that point, he says he gets mystified. He's like, wait a minute, what's really going on here with this flywheel with spinning bar magnets in it? He's got some pictures of the shop. You can see the gears and chains and other things that are in there. And he talks about possibly trying to replicate this. But I think what he's talking about, I didn't mark it. But he talks about how there's like radio tuners and spools of copper wire and like coiled wire that's like wire that's both hollow and then flat. Like he's got single core wire and then flattened wire and then hollow tube copper, all of them wound in various ways. Like he was experimenting with,
Yeah, electromagnetism.
Yeah. So he says, although today we stand in amazement before ancient megalithic sites that were built employing huge stones, if we had Leedskalnin's technique for lifting huge stones, it would make sense to us that the ancient masons might make their building blocks as large as possible. Very simply, it would be more economical to build in that manner. If we had a need to fill a 5-foot cube, the energy and time required to cut small blocks and fill the cube would be much greater than what would be required to cut one giant block.
Right.
So if you could take away the problem of moving them around, then suddenly it becomes more economical to use enormous blocks.
Right. Makes sense.
He says, I have no doubt that Leedskalnin told the truth when he said he knew the secrets of the ancient Egyptians. Unlike those who have sought publicity for their own inadequate, although politically correct, theories, Leedskalnin proved his theory through his actions. I believe also that we can rediscover his techniques and put them to use for the benefit of humankind. Edward Leedskalnin, right or wrong, had a little bit of a problem with trust, but this modus operandi was not unusual for a craftsperson of his day. Proprietary techniques without patent disclosure assure continued employment. Therefore, it was perfectly normal that he would protect his secret from prying eyes that might steal and profit from it. I believe there are enough pieces of the puzzle left in Leedskalnin's workshop to allow us to put them together and replicate his technique.
That's cool. Yeah, another part, he went out and bought a bar magnet.
Yeah.
Dunn. Chris Dunn did.
And then came back.
He came back and then he spun the flywheel and he held the bar magnet close to the edge and found that the bar magnets that were encased in concrete were actually in reverse polarity. One polarity.
They opposed each other, yeah.
Right. So he could feel it pushing and pulling his magnet.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, it's alternating current is what that's going to produce.
Yeah.
So.
Whoops. Oh.
Rookie
Amateur
mistake.
hour, yeah. Hate to see it happen. There we go.
0 mistakes.
All right, so we're in Chapter 7, which is called Endeavoring to Explain the Enigma. He says, researchers have especially noted the Great Pyramid's geometric dimensions. Having worked with dimensions and angles all my working life, not just for the sake of dimensions themselves, Their relevance in the Great Pyramid, while being important, was not of a primary concern to me. The dimensions, after all, are not the object, but a means to create the object. The area of study that I felt would reveal the true purpose of the Great Pyramid was a thorough examination of the inner chambers, passages, and every little detail that has been noted within them. While I was studying the inner chambers and passages of the Great Pyramid, I became convinced that I was looking at the prints for an extremely large machine. Except this machine had been relieved of its inner components for some inexplicable reason. It is difficult to envision a machine this big, but with this basic premise, I studied the drawings a little closer in order to obtain an understanding of how it might have operated. The tremendous amount of masonry used in constructing this edifice suggested to me that there were things happening inside this pyramid that made such a quantity necessary. For some reason, when I read that the first time, it gave me chills. Like, there were things happening in here that made all that stone necessary.
Yeah.
That's freaky. Also, it seemed that the only logical reason an advanced civilization would have to build such a structure at an obviously vast expenditure of time and energy would be the same and only reason our civilization would need to duplicate it, to provide the population with some return on their investment. Energy would be such a return. Okay, so now we're getting to the power plant part. Yeah. He says, okay, so let us look at the Great Pyramid and its relationship to the Earth. Some incredible data have been recorded concerning the Great Pyramid that give us a clear insight into the builder's need to build a precise and close association with our planet. It could be passed off as coincidence that the Great Pyramid is located at the center of Earth's landmass, but other characteristics of this structure strongly emphasize a close relationship to the Earth that is too significant to be overlooked. When John Taylor wrote of the Great Pyramid, quote, "It was to make a record of the measure of the Earth that it was built," unquote, he was basing this conclusion on his evaluation of some astounding mathematical analyses which had emerged through his research into the measurements of the Great Pyramid. He continued, quote, "They knew the Earth was a sphere, and by observing the motion of the heavenly bodies over the Earth's surface, had ascertained its circumference, and were desirous of leaving behind them a record of the circumference as correct and imperishable as it was possible for them to construct," unquote. It was the discovery of the knowledge of the transcendental number of pi in the Great Pyramid that prompted Taylor to conclude that the perimeter of the Great Pyramid could be analogous to the circumference of the Earth at the equator. The height would represent the distance from the center of the Earth to the poles. Further studies of the dimensions of the Great Pyramid revealed surprising inferences regarding the knowledge of its builders. When searching for a unit that would fit the pyramid in whole numbers yet still retain the pi proportion, Taylor's answer of a 366 base and 116.5 height suggested to him that the Egyptians may have divided the perimeter of the Great Pyramid into segments of the solar year. Like 365. It's 366, basically. That's close enough. He also found the figure 366 when he divided the base of the pyramid by 25 inches. This suggested that the British inch was close to the Egyptian unit of measure, with 25 such units making 1 cubit. It was later concluded that the Egyptian unit of measurement exceeded the British inch by 11 thousandths of an inch. It's pretty close. And Taylor found that this unit fit the Great Pyramid in multiples of 366. Even more astounding, geodetic research of the Earth established the Egyptian inch as an accurate unit of the dimensions of the polar radius. Peter Tompkins, in Secrets of the Great Pyramid, wrote, quote, "To Taylor, the inference was clear. The ancient Egyptians must have had a system of measurements based on the true spherical dimensions of the planet, which used a unit which was within a thousandth part of being equal to a British inch. It was speculated that the British inch has lost a thousandth of a part after many generations of use. And that's why it's off.
Right. Not because the pyramid's off.
Right. So now he quotes Piazzi Smith, quote, "There appears to be further an even commensurability of the most marvelous order between the weight of the Great Pyramid and the weight of Earth. The Great Pyramid itself found to be harmoniously commensurable with the Earth by weight of the whole. Smith calculated the weight of the Great Pyramid to be 5,273,834 pyramid tons, and the weight of the Earth to be 5. Whoa. Okay, so there's too many zeros for me to know what that number's called. But basically, it's the same number with a lot of zeros added on to the end of it. Yeah, so the weight of the Great Pyramid was 5,273,834. And the weight of the Earth is 5,273,000,000,000,000,000,000,000, on and on and on. He calculated it to be a 10 to the 15th power integer of the Earth's weight.
Wow.
To review Taylor's findings. 1. A pyramid inch is 1/1000th of an inch larger than a British inch. There are 25 pyramid inches in a cubit, and there were 365.24 cubits in the square base of the Great Pyramid. 2. There are 365.24 days in a calendar year. 3. 1 pyramid inch is equal in length to 1/500 millionth of the Earth's axis of rotation. This relationship suggests that not only were the builders of the Great Pyramid knowledgeable of the dimensions of the planet, they based their measurement system on those dimensions.
And also the orbit of the sun. I mean,
yeah. William Fix presented a well-founded and objective data to support this claim. Quote, "We know that someone in very deep antiquity was aware of the size and shape of the Earth with great precision. The 3 key measurements of the Earth are incorporated in the dimensions of the Great Pyramid. The perimeter of the pyramid equals a half minute of equatorial latitude. The perimeter of the sockets, or the socle, equals a half minute of equatorial longitude, or 1/43,200th of the Earth's circumference. The height of the pyramid, including the platform, equals 1/43,200th of the Earth's polar radius. We do not know how they measured it, but that they did know is now an article of knowledge."
So the base of the pyramid, not including the socle, is the polar radius, or the polar circumference, basically.
Yeah, the perimeter of let's see.
Yeah, because the perimeter, including the socle, is the thing that's 1/43,200th of the equatorial circumference.
Mm-hmm.
But the perimeter that doesn't include the socle is a longitudinal circumference.
Well, he says the height of the pyramid, including the platform, equals the polar radius. But maybe you're right. Yeah, you're probably right. The perimeter of the sockets equals a half minute of equatorial longitude, or 1/43,200th of the Earth's circumference. The height of the pyramid, including the platform, equals 1/43,200th of the polar radius.
But that's just the radius. See, he said longitude.
Mm-hmm. That's the radius around the...
That's latitude. Equatorial latitude.
Was a half minute of equatorial longitude. Or... He says that, and then he says, or 1/43,200th of the Earth's circumference.
Okay. All right. Sorry.
So, yeah, like measuring it around the base of the sockets gives you the circumference.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I'm thinking of the line of longitude, but that is a longitudinal measurement going around the equator.
Right.
My bad. I'm dumb.
Okay. It says, when we question why there is a correlation between the Earth's dimensions and the Great Pyramid, we come up with 3 logical alternatives. 1 is that the builders wished to demonstrate their knowledge of the dimensions of the planet. They felt it necessary to encapsulate this knowledge in an indestructible structure so that future generations, thousands of years in the future, would know of their presence in the world and their knowledge of it. The second possible answer could be that the Earth affected the function of the Great Pyramid. By incorporating the same basic measurements in the pyramid that are found on the planet, the efficiency of the pyramid was improved, and in effect, it could be a harmonic integer of the planet. A third alternative may involve both the first and second answers. The dimensions incorporated in the Great Pyramid may have been included to demonstrate the builder's knowledge, or more importantly, to symbolize the relationship between the Great Pyramid's true purpose and the Earth itself. Perhaps the dimensions were not a critical requirement for the function, but they were included to satisfy the aesthetic nature of the builders. Considering the degree of practical consciousness evident in the Great Pyramid, I am inclined to accept a practical answer for noted phenomena and choose the second alternative because it recognizes a level of pragmatism that such a degree of consciousness would undoubtedly possess. The second alternative leaves no doubt that the builders of the Great Pyramid did not go to a vast amount of trouble simply to pass along their knowledge to some future generation. They used their energies for a more self-serving and timely purpose. That the builders of the Great Pyramid employed the dimensions of Earth in their pyramid as a means to an end in achieving a specific result is easier to accept than the speculation that it was the result of some magnanimous gesture intended for future generations. Could our society afford to build, if we were able to, such a structure for this purpose?
Yeah. I don't think so.
Nope.
I totally agree with him on that, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's a
reason.
Yeah. Well, that's a reason for them, not a reason for future generations, right? And the Watcher is saying a 10 to the 24th is a iota, and 5.972 yotagrams
Is the weight
of the Earth. Iota.
Yeah.
Is that how you pronounce that? Or is it yada?
Yoda? Yoda? I don't know. I like
Never
Yoda.
heard of it.
I like Yoda.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a break.
Okay.
History the way you wish it was taught here at the Snake Rose Institute for Advanced Copperlight Studies, where there are no degrees, only certificates of ignorance. And I think this book is proving that. We just don't know stuff.
Yeah.
The more you look at this structure, the more you realize we have no idea what's going on. So,
Yeah.
where are we at here? This is... okay, clearly we're almost at another chapter. Yeah, so we're in chapter 8. Okay.
Man, we had all that break time for you to figure that out.
I know. I just realized I need to figure this out just now. Okay, so he says, because the Earth constantly generates a broad spectrum of vibration, we could utilize vibration as a source of energy if we developed suitable technology. Naturally, any device that attracted greater amounts of this energy than is normally being radiated from the Earth could greatly improve the efficiency of the equipment. Because energy will inherently follow the path of least resistance, it follows that any device offering less resistance to this energy than the surrounding medium through which it passes would have a greater amount of energy channeled through it. Keeping all of this in mind and knowing that the Great Pyramid is a mathematical integer of the Earth, it may not be so outlandish to propose that the pyramid is capable of vibrating at a harmonic frequency of the Earth's fundamental frequency. As it turns out, such is the case. Acoustic data, scanty as it is, supports the theory that the Great Pyramid responds to vibrations from within the Earth. I wish I had been with NASA consultant and acoustical engineer Tom Danley when he conducted his acoustical analysis within the King's Chamber. I owe him a great deal because he performed a task that I have wanted to see transpire for 20 years. As of this writing, Danley is remaining very quiet about his research in Egypt because he is currently under a non-disclosure agreement with the Shore Foundation, a private research organization headed by industrialist Joseph Shore. The Shore Foundation funded Danley's research within the Great Pyramid in 1996, and Honoring an agreement with the Egyptian Department of Antiquities, they are keeping strict control of all the information they gathered there. Ugh. There was another member of this party, however, who was not keeping so quiet. Boris Said is a self-proclaimed documentarian and was producer of the Mysteries of the Sphinx documentary. Said was under a non-disclosure agreement with Shore as well, but claims that Shore negated the agreement by not telling him that his permit to film at Giza had been withdrawn or had expired as he was still working on the plateau. In an interview on the Art Bell radio show, Said described Danley's experiments, which involved the use of large amplifiers, subwoofers, and accelerometers. Snake Force is right. So this was an instrument designed to detect vibration, and they were strategically placed in the King's Chamber and in each of the air spaces above the King's Chamber. Much of what Danley discovered remains with Danley, but what little Said has disclosed to promote a documentary video he had produced is quite revealing. And then we are quoting Said here. Subsequent experiments conducted by Tom Danley in the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid and in chambers above the Great King's Chamber suggest that the pyramid was constructed with a sonic purpose. Danley identifies 4 resonant frequencies or notes that are enhanced by the structure of the pyramid and by the materials used in its construction. The notes from an F-sharp chord, which according to ancient Egyptian texts were the harmonic of our planet. Moreover, Danley's tests show that these frequencies are present in the King's Chamber even when no sounds are being produced. They are there in frequencies that range from 16 hertz down to 1/2 of a hertz, well below the range of human hearing. According to Danley, these vibrations are caused by the wind blowing across the ends of the so-called shafts, in the same way as sounds are created when one blows across the top of a bottle. Included in the program is a meeting with a Native American maker of sacred flutes from Oregon. His flutes, which are made to serenade Mother Earth, are tuned to the key of F sharp. Danley has come up, so this is, that's unquote. Danley has come up with an interesting theory regarding the wind as the source of the infrasonic sound, but I wonder if he is really hiding something. Did his instruments reveal the source of the sound to be the Earth itself, but he is not allowed to tell? See, Dunn's got a conspiracy guy in him too. Yeah, buddy.
I like it.
The reason I wonder is that fans have been installed within the mouths of the shafts Danley refers to, and in the west side of the passage leading into the King's Chamber is a tunnel bored to the northern shaft, which has been opened along its length for several feet, precluding any vibrations in the King's Chamber from being caused by the Coke bottle effect. Moreover, the fans were installed to remove excess heat and humidity and are drawing air from the pyramid's chambers through the shafts to the outside. All of these are conditions that would make the Coke bottle effect extremely unlikely. Like if air was blowing out of the top of the Coke bottle, you would not be able to blow across it to get a tone.
But were the fans on when he was doing that test?
I
doubt it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because they would have been making all kinds of noise.
That's true. Danley, as an acoustical engineer, must know this as well as I do. Therefore, I wonder if the most likely source for the infrasonic sound within the King's Chamber is the Earth itself. I recently had the opportunity to confirm the acoustical phenomena of the King's Chamber in a unique and rather fortuitous way, although without Danley's instrumentation or expertise. On February 24th, 1995, I paid the inspector of the Giza Plateau $100 to leave me inside the Great Pyramid after all the tourists had left and it was officially closed. Man.
Well spent.
Yeah, Dunn, you're just doxing that dude, though. You give the exact date, they're going to know who was working that day. That dude's going to get fired. Come on, guy. He says, it was Ramadan, a sacred time for Muslims, and tourist attractions were closing early. I had asked to be left alone in the Great Pyramid for 30 minutes with all the lights turned off. Mohammed, the inspector, God, he just doxes him. Name, date, everything. Thought I was going to meditate, and I did not correct his thinking as I negotiated the deal. My backpack was weighted with my water bottle, which is an essential item in Egypt, and some instruments I had brought along specifically to take some acoustical and electromagnetic frequency measurements. I was pressed for time, and the activities I had planned allowed no time for meditation. Excuse me. I had asked for the lights to be turned off because I did not want any background electrical noise to affect the digital frequency counter with which I was equipped. I had brought this along to measure radio frequencies that I believe can be generated by the resonant chamber inside the Great Pyramid. Radio frequencies. I had also brought along a tape recorder, which I turned on and placed upon a block of granite situated close to the granite coffer. Using this block as a work stage, I positioned my flashlight, the digital frequency counter, and a monochromatic tuner, which measures sound frequency and is used to tune musical instruments, as I heard the last batch of tourists making their way down the ascending passage to the outside. When the noise faded away, I began to test the frequency of the granite box. I had read in a booklet by flautist. It's spelled flout.
Oh, really?
Yeah, F-L-A-U-T-I-S-T, but it's maybe it's flautist? I don't know. Paul Horn, that accompanied his album Inside the Great Pyramid, that the granite box resonated at a frequency of 438 cycles per second. Horn, his name is Horn. What's fucking going on here, guys? Horn had used a Korg tuner, which is quite a bit more expensive than the Matrix tuner I was using, to perform his own acoustical tests inside the chamber. I thumped the side of the box with my fist. The tuner registered between 439 and 440 hertz. I loudly hummed that note to test the resonance of the King's Chamber. Sliding up the scale, I noticed that the reverberation faded until I produced the same note 1 octave higher, and then the reverberation was even greater. It was then time to test for radio frequencies, and the lights were still not turned off. I was becoming concerned because I had to be out of there in 15 minutes, so I crouched back through the passageway, stood at the top of the Grand Gallery, and yelled to the guards to turn off the lights. While there, I intoned the note I had hummed earlier, then scurried back into the King's Chamber with the intent of being by my flashlight before I was pitched into darkness. At last, the hum of the lights ended abruptly. I was left with only the light from my flashlight. My heart was pounding in my chest. I was sweating profusely. I had reached the moment of truth. But not that day. To my chagrin, I realized that the hum of the lights was masking the whir of fans installed in the alleged air channels. The guards had turned the lights off, but, as I discovered later, they could not turn off the fans without a key to the electrical box that controlled them. I blessed Rudolph Gattenbrink for such fine engineering. For he had installed those fans before he made his famous exploration of the Queen's Chamber shafts. Disappointed that I would not be able to use any data, I went ahead and took some readings anyway. I then packed my materials and hurried out of the King's Chamber, down the Grand Gallery, tortured my thighs again down the ascending passage, and then walked quickly through Al Mamoon's forced passage to the gate and out into fresh air. Back in my hotel room, I rewound the tape, played it back, and discovered 3 very interesting acoustical phenomena. First, the tape had picked up overtones to the note I was humming in the King's Chamber. I had been unable to hear them while I was in the chamber because I was the source of the sound. This was a very exciting discovery as it supported my theory on the King's Chamber. I tempered my enthusiasm, however, with the thought that it might be the equipment that was resonating at a higher frequency and generating this overtone. Mine was not a very expensive tape recorder, but still, I believe the overtones were generated by the chamber complex itself, including the granite ceiling beams, because of the King's Chamber's true design and purpose. The second discovery revealed that when I was on the great step at the top of the Grand Gallery, yelling to have the lights turned off and then humming the tone, the playback sounded as if I had never left the room. That's really cool.
Yeah.
At that moment, except for a small passageway, there were thousands of tons of granite and limestone that separated me from the recorder, and my voice was being projected into a 28-foot high and 150-foot long expanse of space. The third revelation was that the footsteps and noises I made while traversing the low passage to and from the Grand Gallery reverberated in the King's Chamber and caused it to resonate at its natural frequency. This was noted on the Matrix monochromatic tuner that was turned on as I played back the tape. My footsteps and noises were registering at approximately 440 hertz.
Aziz, lights!
Aziz, lights! Oh, thank you, Aziz. I particularly noted that the fluctuations of the tuner during this section of the playback were not as great as those I had observed while inside the king's chamber when I was humming the frequency. That's cool though, but his footsteps are going boom, 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 boom inside the king's chamber, all hitting that 440 note.
That's cool.
Okay, some of this I didn't mark.
So it's like when he was in the room, the frequency fluctuated a little more, but when he was not in it,
it was perfect.
That's cool.
He says, on June 8th, 1997, I was discussing these phenomena with Stephen Mailer, the director of research for the Kinnaman Foundation. In February of 1997, after appearing with Mailer on a television panel discussion in Santa Barbara, California, I had sent him an abstract of my theory regarding the Great Pyramid. He told me about an acoustics engineer named Robert Walter, who had done some studio analysis of a tape recording that he, Mailer, had made inside the king's chamber. As he related it to me, those results were the same as mine. I was given Walter's phone number and promptly gave him a call. Walter confirmed what Mailer told me. He said that he had digitally processed the tape provided by Mailer, and he was able to isolate harmonic overtones of the intoned frequency. Walter claimed that the king's chamber was designed specifically as a resonant chamber in which sound of specific frequencies would resonate. He said that every dimensional feature of the chamber he had studied indicated the manifestation and form of a harmonic resonance. He was in the process of compiling data to support his statement and will be publishing his findings in the future. So I wonder if we could find out if that guy published anything.
Mm-hmm.
While I was discussing with Mailer my experience inside the king's chamber and the noise of the tourists as they were leaving the pyramid, he related a report by Howard Vise, who claimed that he was in the king's chamber and was able to hear a conversation taking place in the subterranean pit.
That's crazy.
Walter confirmed the speculation that this is because the entire interior passageway was designed to maximize the throughput of sound. This same phenomenon is well known at St. Paul's Cathedral in London. The Whispering Gallery has surprised many a visitor who hears a voice and turns around to see who is speaking, only to find no one there. The gallery is circular, with walls made of hard materials. The sound of a person speaking in a low voice on one side of the gallery will be reflected around the circular wall, just grazing the hard surface, and can be heard on the other side of the gallery. The angle of incidence ensures total reflection of sound. With this experimental evidence available and with what can be extrapolated from the dimensions and mass of the Great Pyramid, we have an object that fits the criteria established as necessary for an object to draw vibrations from the Earth. That object is the Great Pyramid of Giza. Here is the product of an ancient civilization, empowered with the knowledge that as long as the moon continues to orbit the Earth, the special relationship that existed between the two assured the Egyptians of vast amounts of energy. The source of the energy is the Earth itself in the form of seismic energy. The ancient Egyptians saw tremendous value in this form of energy and expended a considerable amount of effort to tap into it. The benefits they received may have been twofold: energy to fuel their civilization and the ability to stabilize the Earth's crust by drawing off seismic energy over a period of time rather than allowing it to build up to destructive levels.
That's cool.
Yeah. Okay. Next part here. Energy is the basis of creating electricity that we can utilize. So how can we harness the power of an earthquake? Obviously today, if that much energy were being drawn from the Earth and through the Great Pyramid, tourists would not be parading through it every day. In order for the system to work, the pyramid would need to be mechanically coupled with the Earth and vibrating in sympathy with it. To do this, the system would need to be primed. We would need to initiate oscillation of the pyramid before we could tap into the Earth's oscillations. After the initial priming pulse, though, the pyramid would be coupled with the Earth and could draw off its energy. In effect, the Great Pyramid would feed into the Earth a little bit of energy and receive an enormous amount of it out in return. How would that work? Like, I'm trying to envision how this would work. He's basically saying once you've got it primed, you get it ringing a little bit, and then because it's a sympathetic ringing with the Earth's ringing, somehow it gets louder and louder and louder, and the process continues.
I think it's because it's a harmonic. So naturally, the Earth like say whatever your fundamental vibration is, the harmonic is in there, but it may not be very, very loud, right? It may not be very
Yeah, it's not perceivable or whatever, but yeah.
dynamic. But if you, I could just use a guitar for example. Like if you strike the E string, the low E, you can, like the high E of the guitar string would vibrate, right, at its resonant frequency, which is octaves above, or an octave above the low. But if you strike the low E, if you strike the high E, you'll get the low E, you'll bring out the harmonic, the high harmonic of the low E, right? And then that will help sustain it. So if you strike the low E and then you strike the high E, you'll also induce the high E harmonic on the low string to begin, or to come out more.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think that's what he's saying. Like if you build a model that's a high harmonic of some other fundamental, the fundamental's already vibrating at that. You may not immediately get the high harmonic going, but if you get it going, if you
It'll be
kickstart
sustained
it
by the other one.
if you kickstart it, it will then be sustained by the fundamental.
Okay. That makes sense.
Obviously, if the fundamental is loud enough or moving, dynamic enough, I guess it will get the higher one going. But
Yeah.
it would be easier to tap into it. Like, especially, I'm thinking of this in terms of a suspended guitar string, but this is like a big old pyramid of rock. So yeah.
Yeah.
If you got it resonating at some high harmonic of the earth frequency, then it very well may be sustained by it,
the Earth's fundamental.
because the Earth's harmonic, that harmonic of the Earth would then actually begin to resonate more coherently or something.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right, that makes sense.
I can demonstrate this. We could do a demonstration.
Okay, yeah, we should do a demonstration maybe in the next segment. And the watcher's got a good point here. He says, this reminds me of Thoth draining power from the moon to add 5 days for Isis to birth her children. Because the moon is powering the vibration of the earth.
Yeah.
Her.
Very good, Watcher.
Her. So he says, how do we cause a mass of stone that weighs 5,273,834 tons to oscillate? It would seem to be an impossible task. Yet there was a man in recent history who claimed he could do just that. Nikola Tesla, a physicist and inventor with more than 600 patents to his credit, one of them being the AC generator, created a device he called an earthquake machine. And I think this is telegeodynamics, right? This is the...
Yeah, this is what I was talking about last time.
Yeah.
The quote-unquote earthquake machine is a mechanical oscillator. That's what he actually called it in his patents, but he did, that's sort of his
press
nickname
phrase,
for it.
yeah. Yeah. It creates earthquakes.
The
guys.
mechanical oscillator.
Yeah.
A cylinder of fine steel floating in air.
That's right. By applying vibration at the resonant frequency of a building, he claimed he could shake the building apart. In fact, it is reported that he had to turn his machine off before the building he was testing it in came down around him. The New York World Telegram reported Tesla's comments from a news briefing at the Hotel New Yorker on July 11th, 1935. Quote, Tesla says, quote, I was experimenting with vibrations. I had one of my machines going and I wanted to see if I could get it in tune with the vibration of the building. I put it up notch after notch. There was a peculiar cracking sound. I asked my assistants, where did the sound come from? They did not know. I put the machine up a few more notches. There was a louder cracking sound. I knew I was approaching the vibration of the steel building. I pushed the machine a little higher. Suddenly, all the heavy machinery in the place was flying around. I grabbed a hammer and broke the machine. The building would have been about our ears in just another few minutes. Outside in the street, there was pandemonium. The police and ambulances arrived. I told my assistants to say nothing. We told the police it must have been an earthquake, and that's all they ever knew about it. Sorry about that.
It's funny. So the first mechanical oscillator he built required a hammer to get it started.
Oh yeah.
You take a hammer and you just smack the
Oh yeah, to get
you
it going.
smack the cylinder on one side.
Yeah.
Like the the shaft.
The chamber? Oh, okay.
The shaft of the cylinder on one side.
Yeah.
Because like it was powered by air pressure, so that when the cylinder was at rest, it was in the center, or the piston was in the center of the cylinder, and the air pressure was just up against the closed valve.
Yeah.
In order to open the valve, you had to push the piston to one side, but that would pressurize that side. So he just smack, and then it's like, and it would start going. I can't imagine he broke that machine with a hammer. I mean, the thing's pretty solid.
Well, he may have knocked it off the whatever he attached it to the building with a hammer. He's just like, you can't touch it. It's going.
That's
like,
true. That's true. You could just turn off the air compressor.
Yeah, that's true.
But he could have also just hit it with a hammer to stop it.
Yeah, true. A reporter at that point asked Dr. Tesla what he would need to destroy the Empire State Building. Great question.
5 pounds of air.
Tesla replied, 5 pounds of air pressure. If I attach the proper oscillating machine on a girder, that is all the force I would need. 5 pounds. Vibration will do anything. It would only be necessary to step up the vibration of the machine to fit the natural vibration of the building, and the building would come crashing down. That is why soldiers break step crossing a bridge. So I like that. Like, there's this thing when soldiers are marching all in step with each other. When they come to a bridge, they're trained to break that lockstep, because otherwise they'll break the bridge. Yep. You know, you got 400 people on a bridge just go when the bridge starts bouncing, and then you can shatter the bridge and everybody falls.
Yep.
Scientist Tom Bearden, in a paper to the International Tesla Society in 1988, man, we needed to join that. I didn't know there was an International Tesla Society. In 1988, went further with Tesla's research into using the Earth as a source for energy and proposed that, quote, all that need be done to extract enormous energy is to input the grid signal into the Earth and receive the enormous plate signal response. The standing S wave is continuously replenished from the stress energy in the Earth itself, so power may be extracted continuously. Bearden cautioned, however, that his model was based on an, quote, idealized isotropic medium, and our results eventually must be modified to take into account the Earth's anisotropy? I don't know how to say that one. It's not isotropic.
Yeah, anisotropy. I think that's
anisotropy, okay. Okay, so Dunn says, by applying Tesla's technology in the Great Pyramid using alternated timed pulses at the apex of the pyramid and in the subterranean chamber, a feature, by the way, that all the Egyptian pyramids have, we may be able to set in motion 5,273,834 tons of stone. If we have trouble getting the Great Pyramid going, there are 3 small pyramids nearby that we can start first to get things moving.
I thought that was genius.
Yeah, those are the starter engines.
Yes, it's genius. And there's something interesting about those too. I saw a diagram.
Yeah, the way they're laid out along with the Great Pyramid.
Their shadows cast on the pyramid at 3 different times. The solstices, the equinox.
Yeah.
Like they align. The shadows at the time line up with the edge of the Great Pyramid.
Aeroelastic flutter. Huh.
There's 2 different, like the 2 pyramids on the outsides, the 2 mastabas on the outsides, the left and right, are the solstices, and the one in the middle is the equinox.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, when you look at it that way, you're like, okay, either the later builders revered the pyramid and they built those and, you know, or you could say that was actually part of the original ground plan.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that's cool.
Right.
Starter engines.
Yeah. Those are the starters. And Watcher's pointing out the Tacoma's Narrows Bridge. Yes, he actually, Dunn does mention that in this chapter. I don't think I marked it, but.
Galloping Gertie?
Yeah, Galloping Gertie. He says, once the vibration of the pyramid is coupled to the vibration of the Earth, the transfer of energy from the Earth to the pyramid could be sustained until the process is reversed. Once the pyramid is coupled to the Earth, we would have to design a system that would do something with the energy. I propose that the Egyptians had in fact created such a system using crystals and other natural elements. The secrets of ancient technology may be beginning to emerge in a fantastic and extraordinary way. Let me explain how. Now we're on chapter 9, the mighty crystal. So he says, let me make no apology for the theory I am proposing. The Great Pyramid was a geomechanical power plant that responded sympathetically with the Earth's vibrations and converted that energy into electricity. They used the electricity to power their civilization, which included machine tools with which they shaped hard, igneous rock.
So they already had the technology to do this, but they wanted to build like
Yeah,
a bigger, better, more badass power plant.
right. Yeah. Because they had to have been using that some version of that technology
Right.
to build this thing.
And he also points out later that like you don't just start out building a massive power plant.
Right.
Like,
That's right.
you know, you develop the need for electricity first. You're playing around with it. You've already generated it.
Yeah.
You've converted some other type of energy to electrical energy, and then you begin to build the bigger power
Yeah.
plants.
Yeah, because you're just like, if only this was bigger
Yeah.
and I could spin this flywheel a lot faster.
Everything would be cool.
Yeah. The granite out of which the king's chamber is constructed is an igneous rock containing silicon quartz crystals. This particular granite, which was brought from the Aswan quarries, contains 55% or more quartz crystal. D. J. Nelson and David H. Coville saw special significance in the builder's choice of granite for constructing the king's chamber. They wrote, quote, this means that lining the king's chamber, for instance, are literally hundreds of tons of microscopic quartz particles. The particles are hexagonal, bipyramidal, or rhombohedral in shape. Rhomboid crystals are six-sided prisms with quadrangle sides that present a parallelogram on any of the six facets. This guarantees that embedded within the granite rock is a high percentage of quartz fragments whose surfaces, by the law of natural averages, are parallel on the upper and lower sides. Additionally, any slight plasticity of the granite aggregate would allow a piezotension upon these parallel surfaces and cause an electromotive flow. The great mass of stone above the pyramid chambers presses downward by gravitational force upon the granite walls, thereby converting them into perpetual electric generators. The inner chambers of the Great Pyramid have been generating electrical energy since their construction 46 centuries ago. A man within the king's chamber would thus come within a weak but definite induction field.
That was a quote from somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're up on time, by the way.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's take a break then. That quote is wrong.
That's right.
Some of it. We'll get to that after the break. And maybe in a demonstration of resonance.
Relentless and unstoppable pursuit of the wisdom of the ancients. Brothers of the Serpent podcast. So we got a band. We just started a band. The Pyramidians.
Oh, yeah.
I have my guitar here. Russ has the trumpet. Very nice.
Yeah, so we're gonna try to do some resonance demonstrations / experiments here with the guitar and the trumpet using the. So explain the setup if we're comparing it to this pyramid system.
Okay, so excuse me. The guitar, in this case, is the guitar string that's going to be resonating is the earth. In this particular setup we have, so I can pluck that string and it's going to be vibrating at its fundamental. And then Russ has the trumpet, which is the Kickstarter engine to draw out that higher harmonic of the fundamental earth tone. Now, in this scenario, we have to do it really loud. I have an electric guitar. I've got an amplifier in there so that you can hear it.
Yeah.
So he's going to play the trumpet at the guitar while this note is resonating out. And as soon as he stops that note, you're going to hear the higher harmonic coming through. So it's in a way it's amplifying that higher harmonic just by getting that harmonic resonance going within the fundamental vibration. So
Yeah. Cool.
okay, so here I'm gonna turn on the buzziness. Ow. Okay, so this is the note.
Okay. And you can hear the higher harmonic resonating in there.
Yep. I did nothing.
Kyle did not touch it after initially flicking it. Okay, so let me do it without you, just clean, without you hitting the note.
And I've got all the other strings on the guitar muted. There, I've got my fingers on.
Yeah, so he's only letting the one string that is resonating with this note.
Oop,
Whoops.
try again. I think we're getting out of tune.
Are we out of tune? Yeah, I'm heating the trumpet
Seems
up.
a little sharp. But it worked the first time.
Yeah, we got it. There it is.
Yeah.
You can hear the wah, 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 wah.
Yep. It's bringing out quite a few
Yeah.
different ones.
Yeah.
So yeah, in theory, this will work. Right? And I think that in many cases, earthquakes can do this. So if you have an earthquake, or perhaps what we detect in terms of earthquakes, like how they say, oh, an earthquake's going to be coming because all the meters start wobbling.
Yeah.
It's as though a higher harmonic of the earth frequency is getting going for some reason.
Oh, okay, yeah, right.
And if it
Response to
gets
the sun.
going,
Yeah.
if it gets going loud enough, quote unquote, high enough energy, then it can start moving plates around.
Yeah, plates will start slipping because they're already under tension.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you've ever, set your drink on a loudspeaker and it's playing a song, occasionally the bass, which is that's going to be the lowest frequency in a song or whatever, that's going to be getting the whole cabinet of the thing vibrating mechanically. Occasionally, when it hits the right notes and it matches the harmonic of that entire cabinet, your drink starts moving across the top.
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of the idea I have about, earthquakes can be generated in the same manner.
So this is the idea that I had, okay? Because we've constantly, we've always wondered, what is this deal with them leaving that mound in the middle of the pyramid?
Yeah.
That locks it in place. If the thing was designed to vibrate with the whole planet, having a protruding mound in the middle sort of like is a pin that locks the thing into that spot.
Yes. I like that.
And also
The primordial anchor.
Yes, that's right. All right, fine demonstration, sir. Fine demonstration.
Threw it together in 2 snake minutes.
That's right. Okay. So Dunn says, it would be possible for us to tune a length of granite, such as those found in the Great Pyramid, by altering its physical dimensions. We could attain a precise frequency by either altering the length of the beam, as a guitarist alters the length of a guitar string, or by removing material from the beam's mass, as in the tunings of bells. A bell is tuned to a fundamental hum and its harmonics removed by... A bell is tuned to a fundamental hum and its harmonics by removing metal from critical areas. If we would strike the beam as one would strike a tuning fork, while it is being held in a position similar to that of the beams above the king's chamber, we could induce oscillation of the beam. Then we could sample the frequency of the beam's vibration and remove more material until the correct frequency was reached. So, with that particular thing in mind, I have this interesting article that somebody sent me. Let me make sure. Okay, yeah. It's actually just one of those, top 10, whatever. This one's called 12 Astounding Images from Inside the Great Pyramid That You Should See. It's from curiosmos.com. But I wanted to show you, and you guys can just go look this up, curiosmos.com. They have pictures of these weird features that are in the some of the relieving chambers of the tops of the beams. Okay?
Mm-hmm. Where they were tuning the beams, yeah.
Yes. So if it'll load the photos.
Well, while it's doing that, I wanted to point out that with a piano,
So, yeah.
real quickly,
Yeah.
where the hammers strike the string on a piano is
That's right.
specifically chosen by the designer to bring out and in some cases eliminate as much as possible, dampen or attenuate the nastier harmonics of the
right.
string. Because, like I said, that in every fundamental vibration, you can contain any multiple of that vibration within it. And so certain of these multiples could be brought out in any number of ways. Well, if you're striking a string with a hammer, where you strike it is also going to have an effect on the types of harmonics that may come out, that may be exemplified by that strike. So, yeah, they're specifically chosen. We have an intruder.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, buddy. What's going on? What happened?
Mom.
You lost Mom? We'll have to take a break.
Yeah.
My son lost his mom.
We'll be right back.
Brothers of the Serpent Podcast. Listen to Snake Bros, two dudes and a long head in a bunker in outer space, seriously talking about serious pyramids and all other subject matter. The most serious commentary in podcasting. Listen now and get serious.
Yeah, so the Hypogeum on Malta, when they first found it, there were like 6,000 skeletons inside it.
Dead serious.
The Baalbek blocks weigh 1,600 tons.
Serious stones.
The Templars went to Jerusalem and found the Shamir.
Serious
The
artifacts.
processional cycle is 25,920 years long.
Serious numbers.
Serpent in the Sky has 3 appendices about the Sphinx.
Serious appendixes.
And do you know what the dog star is?
Serious.
There are precision machined boxes in the Serapeum that weigh 70 tons.
Granite boxes made of stone.
Can't cut granite with copper, it's too hard.
Hard facts.
What's actually happening is we're coming up on an ice age.
Cold hard facts.
Most of the time, we're wrong about everything.
30% brain expansion. Guaranteed. Listen to Brothers of the Serpent podcast and discover serious concepts like scriptards,
Friggin' scriptards.
Johnson,
Nice going, John.
bowling pin hats,
All the Egyptian gods are wearing bowling pin hats.
shoulder rivers,
Inky's got rivers coming out of his shoulders.
and dudes with spears and butt flaps.
It's always depicted as dudes running around in butt flaps.
Serious subjects, serious commentary, dead serious podcasting. Brothers of the Serpent podcast. Download now.
Get all of your super serious Brothers of the Serpent commentary at brothersoftheserpent.com or anywhere podcasts can be found.
Okay. Enough said about pianos.
So, okay. These
Mom
are-
was found also,
yeah,
by the way.
mother was found. Yes.
She never left.
Right. She did not vanish without a trace. So these are scoop marks taken out of the beams that are the floor of Campbell's chamber, the very top one.
Ah.
So they were scooping the tops out,
Oh, man, that looks like...
tuning
yeah.
it, right?
Wow.
And then, so you guys...
It's kind of like those ones that Uncharted X was pointing out, like the scoops in the
Yes.
Serapeum boxes.
The
and
Serapeum
stuff.
boxes, yeah. And so this is in Lady Arbuthnot's chamber. More tuning marks. See how they were...
Yeah.
They're long, like they were scraping away all along in regular intervals, scraping troughs out to sort of remove material. But these are more regular than the.
So with cymbals, like drum cymbals, percussion cymbals, they hammer the surface. And that actually, I'm not sure exactly how all of this works, but I'm pretty sure that the hammering, depending on the pattern that they do it in, can kind of cause these different, I don't know what they're called, like a wash of frequency. So it's like,
Oh, okay, yeah.
right? It creates instead of the cymbal maintaining like a single
Like
fundamental,
a bell. Yeah.
like a bell, it makes it wash. So they're hammered specifically to create all of these inconsistencies.
So it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's kind of what that reminds me of. Like they're doing something to prevent it from
being too harmonic.
maybe, yeah.
Yeah, you don't want, because they'll start cracking. There's,
Yeah.
it can only, any material can only handle so much resonant vibration. But yeah, look at that. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So I'll probably stick these in the show notes, and if you're watching the video on YouTube, you'll see them. Otherwise, you can go to curiosmos.com. Just look up 12 astounding images from inside the pyramid.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Favorite subject of mine, people? Resonance.
Okay. So, next part here. Dunn says, another interesting discovery was made by the Shore expedition. This is a preliminary report told to Art Bell by Boris Said. It was discovered that the floor of the King's Chamber does not sit on solid rock. Not only is the entire granite complex surrounded by massive limestone walls with a space between the granite and the limestone, but the floor itself sits on what is characterized as corrugated rock. Acoustical analysis of the floor of the King's Chamber by Danley revealed that the flooring blocks are not sitting on solid masonry. There are pockets beneath the floor that indicate that the support for the floor is corrugated. Think of like an egg carton, with the flooring sitting on the high nodes. In addition, the walls of the chamber do not sit on that granite floor, but are supported from outside and sunk 5 inches below the floor level.
Yeah, that's really weird.
The entire complex is freestanding from the limestone masonry, has minimal damping of the floor, and is thus free to vibrate at peak efficiency. It is no wonder that the entire chamber rings while tourists walk around inside. This also explains how an explosion inside of it could move them outwards.
Yeah.
There's dead space between the granite and the limestone surrounding it. And then the floor is corrugated. That's crazy.
So you take the limestone vaulted ceiling above all the relieving chambers, and that shifts the weight of the stone above to the outside of the stones, but it's actually to the outside of the limestone.
Yeah.
Then you build this granite room, and then you have all the relieving chambers standing on the granite.
Yeah. Yeah, so the whole granite assembly is on itself.
Freestanding.
But it's freestanding and it touches the limestone of the pyramid as little as possible and doesn't bear any of the weight of the limestone of the pyramid.
So I'd like to see that, like, for sure, that the vaulted limestone ceiling at the very top actually goes out to the limestone walls.
Yeah, I don't have it here, but he shows a diagram, and those vaulted ceiling things come down and they hit big limestone blocks on the outside, and those blocks they start out wedge shaped and they slowly get flatter and flatter as they go down.
Yeah.
Right. So initially,
that's
they're
in
like
the Queen's
this.
Chamber too. That shows that.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So he says, it would follow, therefore, that the coffer inside the King's Chamber was specifically tuned to a precise frequency, and that the chamber itself was scientifically engineered to resonate in harmony with the sound waves that were generated in the Grand Gallery and focused into it. Perhaps these observations will provide an answer to Horn's experience. I can't get over this guy's name, Horn. And to a mystery that Petrie puzzled over at great length. He discovered a flint pebble under the coffer after he raised it, and instead of dismissing it as debris or otherwise, he mulled over its significance. He wrote, quote, "The flint pebble that had been put under the coffer is important. If any person wished at present to prop the coffer up, there are multitudes of stone chips in the pyramid ready to hand. Therefore, fetching a pebble from the outside seems to show that the coffer was first lifted at a time when no breakages had been made in the pyramid, and there were no chips lying about. This suggests that there was some means of access to the upper chambers, which are always available by removing loose blocks without any forcing. If the stones at the top of the shaft leading from the subterranean part to the gallery had been cemented in place, they must have been smashed to break through them, or if there were granite portcullises in the antechamber, they must also have been destroyed, and it is not likely that any person would take the trouble to fetch a large flint pebble into the innermost part of the pyramid if there were stone chips lying in his path."
Yep.
Yeah, I agree with that. So you got a flint chip. And why wasn't it a piece of granite or a piece of limestone, unless there were no pieces of granite or limestone nearby to use, which means that nothing had been broken. You know, either that coffer was set like that during the building of the pyramid, or before the ascending passage was closed off by the granite plugs, or there was access that didn't require destroying anything.
Yeah, but it could have happened between the time that Petrie was looking at it and when Mahmud broke in.
Yeah, but he was the one that made a shitload of the granite chips. And in other words, what he's saying is like it had to have been before Al-Mahmud, because why would it be flint if they had, because they were cutting through all this granite and limestone.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they have just used a granite or a limestone chip?
Right.
But it was a piece of flint. I just
Unless
thought
it
that
was a guy like me that was just like, oh, there's a piece of flint out here. Put it in my pocket or hold it in my hand for a while. Eventually, I'm like, why am I holding this piece of flint? Throw it down. And then later somebody moves the granite coffer on top. Okay, so it's bad. But, I mean, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
But it very well could have been propped up to resonate like that.
Yeah.
Interesting they chose flint. To
Crystalline.
Crypto crystal.
Crypto crystal. That's right. All right, so Dunn says, this gives pertinence to another report, which did not receive much attention at the time it was made. It had been reported that Al-Mamun's men had to break a false floor out of the Grand Gallery, and as they broke one stone out, another slid down in its place. So the ascending passage comes up to the, and it exits out of the floor of the Grand Gallery at the bottom. So presumably, according to the legend, when they cut their way around the granite plugs and they got into the ascending passage, they walked up and then there was it just ended at a flat ceiling, and they cut through that because that was the floor of the Grand Gallery. But when they removed that block, another one slides down into place, and they had to keep taking them out. Okay. So he says, this is a sketchy bit of information that would require further research, if further research is possible, because Al-Mamun's men were tearing out so much limestone that little attention was given to this incident. However, what if that stone slid because the tiled floor in the Grand Gallery had a ratchet style that matches the ceiling? Right? So the ceiling of the Grand Gallery has this weird ratchet style, like, in other words, what he means is like, think of gear notches going along the ceiling. Mm-hmm. Okay? And he was saying that they're angled such that any sound coming up to the ascending passage would hit those in the ceiling and then be reflected perfectly towards the antechamber, towards the king's chamber.
Right.
And he's wondering if that same style of tiles was on the floor of it in order to do the same thing, angled so that they bounce sound exactly back towards up the gallery and towards the antechamber. Much of the stone that Al-Mamun cut out of the ascending passage was dropped down the descending passage. Later explorers, such as Caviglia, Davison, and Petrie, eventually cleared this passage of all debris, and most of this debris was dumped on the traditional rubbish pit on the north and east sides of the Great Pyramid.
I'd like to dig in that pit.
I know, man. Who knows what's in there? Petrie reported finding inside the Great Pyramid a prism-shaped stone that had a half-round groove running its length. In the descending passage, he found a block of granite that was 20.6 inches thick with a tube-drilled hole cut through this thickness on one edge. Okay, I thought that was in the well shaft. So he's saying it was in the descending passage. Where this granite came from and what purpose it was used for in the Great Pyramid was a mystery to Petrie, who wrote, quote, "What part of the pyramid this can have come from is a puzzle. Nothing like it and no place for it is known."
That's weird.
Yeah.
It really bums me out that so many people like Mahmud or whatever just tore through there without documenting it, like Petrie, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and Vise blasting his way up into the relieving chambers and just, Okay, the mystery of the 27 pairs of slots in the side ramps of the Grand Galleries is... there's these slots. Is logically explained if we theorize that each pair of slots contained a resonator assembly, and the slots served to lock these assemblies into place.
27 of them.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Isn't that a prime?
I don't know, but it's 72 backwards.
Yeah. Dang it. Not dyslexic enough to remember that.
It equals 9. Therefore, it's divisible by 9.
Yeah.
So it's not a prime.
Okay.
3 times 9.
The original design of the resonators will always be open to question. However, if their function was to efficiently respond to the Earth's vibration, then we can surmise that they might be similar to a device we know of today that has a similar function, a Helmholtz resonator. A Helmholtz resonator responds to vibrations and actually maximizes the transfer of energy from the source of the vibration. He says the resonator is normally made out of metal, but it can be made out of other materials. A classic example of a Helmholtz resonator is a hollow sphere with a round opening that is 1/10 to 1/5 the diameter of the sphere. The size of the sphere determines the frequency at which it will resonate. If the resonant frequency of the resonator is in harmony with a vibrating source, such as a tuning fork, it will draw energy from the fork and resonate at greater amplitude than the fork is able to without the presence of the resonator. It forces the fork to greater energy output than what is normal, or it loads the fork. Unless the energy in the fork is replenished, the energy will be exhausted quicker than it normally would be without the resonator. But as long as the source continues to vibrate, the resonator will continue to draw energy from it at a greater rate. This reminded me of the dolmens.
Yeah.
This guy was talking about these same things with dolmens. You have
I can see how they could be like a Helmholtz resonator.
Yeah.
You got to get your side slabs and everything just right,
Right.
and then get
Yeah.
that porthole just right.
That's right. Yep.
That's a good idea, dude.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I mean, could those have been like,
Little earth resonators.
yeah, prototypes for this giant thing that was built later?
That's cool.
To extrapolate further, we could say that each resonator assembly that was installed in the Grand Gallery was equipped with several Helmholtz-type resonators that were tuned to different harmonic frequencies. In a series of harmonic steps, each resonator in the series responded at a higher frequency than the previous one. In a manner similar to the King's Chamber's response to energy inputs, its creation of an F-sharp chord, these resonators raised the frequency of the vibrations coming from the Earth. So this is like, there's so many... You gotta raise your vibrations, bro.
Yeah.
All this stuff is like, it's rooted in something ancient.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Crystals.
Yeah.
Raise your vibrations. Yeah.
To increase the resonator's frequency, the ancient scientists would have made the dimensions smaller and correspondingly reduced the distance between the two walls adjacent to each resonator. In fact, the walls of the Grand Gallery actually step inwards 7 times in their height, and most probably the resonator's supports reached almost to the ceiling. So he has this picture of like you've got 27 of these assemblies, and the big spheres are on the bottom of each assembly, and as you go up the assembly and thus climb the walls of the Grand Gallery towards the top, the resonators get smaller and smaller.
The 7 spheres.
The 7 spheres,
in
that's
your
right.
tower.
Yeah.
That's cool.
The music of the spheres. That's another ancient old phrase there. Okay, Dunn says, my first trek inside the Great Pyramid in 1986 did not reveal anything about the geometry of these slots because they were filled with dirt and debris. I loved this story. The following day, I set out with a soup spoon that I had borrowed from the hotel restaurant. He goes downstairs, has some soup, pockets a spoon. Digging out the dirt and debris with tourists and guides looking at me like I was crazy. Actually, it was probably illegal to do this as you need special permissions to carry out excavations in Egypt.
He's in the hotel. He's like, can I borrow this spoon for excavating at the pyramid? Yeah, buddy, sure.
Sure, go right ahead. God, we get some crazies in here. At least it wasn't a toothbrush. He says, I finally came to the bottom of one slot, and it was as I predicted it would be, parallel to the horizontal, and the sides of the slot perpendicular to the horizontal. Other slots were perpendicular to the horizontal as well, though some of them had bottoms that were parallel with the gallery floor. In either scenario, it appears that the slots were prepared to accommodate a vertical structure rather than to restrain weight that would exert shear pressure from the side.
Yeah. See, it's interesting to me, too, that this is not, that there's not a diagram somewhere showing you all of the angles of all of the slots all the way up. Like, this seems like might be pertinent.
Yeah. But it's just superstitious tomb feature.
I mean, but there's a guy that just spends all day measuring the antechamber.
Right. That was Piazzi Smith. He was a crazy pyramidian.
I know, but I'm saying it was so frustrating as it took all day in measuring.
Yeah.
What about the slots, guy?
Okay.
We got to go there.
Yeah, we got to go.
We get the whole snake forest assembled and go there, and everybody can borrow a soup spoon.
Yes.
And we'll have all of the slots excavated in no time.
And we'll all go to jail for unauthorized excavation.
But not if we Naruto run. They can't arrest us all.
Let's dig out them slots. After building the resonators and installing them inside the Grand Gallery, the ancient Egyptians would have wanted to focus a sound of specific frequency, that is, a pure or harmonic chord, into the king's chamber. They would be assured of doing so if they installed an acoustic filter between the Grand Gallery and the king's chamber. By installing baffles inside the antechamber, sound waves traveling from the Grand Gallery through the passageway into the king's chamber would be filtered as they pass through, allowing only a single frequency or harmonic of that frequency to enter the resonant chamber. Those sound waves with a wavelength that did not coincide with the dimensions between the baffles would be filtered out, thereby ensuring that no interference sound waves could enter the resonant king's chamber to reduce the output of the system. So he's speculating that the quote-unquote portcullis system was actually a series of baffles that could be tuned, very minutely by raising and lowering the portcullis, quote-unquote portcullis stones such that they baffled out they dampened any unwanted frequencies from entering the king's chamber from the Grand Gallery. Because the Grand Gallery would be full of a cacophony of different sounds, and you would be amplifying certain ones, but then when all that sound was traveling through the antechamber, you would want to baffle out, that you would want to dampen the ones you don't want.
Right.
To explain the half-round grooves on the west side of the antechamber and the flat surface on the east, we could speculate that when the installation of the baffles took place, they received a final tuning or tweaking. This may have been accomplished by using cams. By rotating the cams, the off-centered shaft would raise or lower the baffles until the throughput of sound was maximized. A slight movement may have been all that was necessary. Maximum throughput would be accomplished when the ceiling of the first part of the passageway from the Grand Gallery, the ceiling of the passageway leading from the acoustic filter to the resonant king's chamber, and the bottom surface of each baffle were in alignment. The shaft suspending the baffles would have been then locked into place in a pillar block located on the flat surface of the wainscoting on the opposite wall.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, because you wouldn't want to be hanging blocks from any kind of rope or anything inside your power plant.
Right. Especially one that's vibrating the whole time.
You're it's going to go out of tune.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to,
you tune it and then lock it in place.
Right. And that's what those little pillars, pilasters.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the quote unquote portcullis doors is still there, sitting on top
the
of
weight. The counterweight thing.
Oh, okay.
All the quote-unquote doors, or baffles in this case, are gone.
Okay.
And the cams, but there are the sockets, the half-round sockets. So he's saying, okay, in those half-round sockets, you had cams coming out, like offset cylinders that you could turn, and it would raise or lower the block that was on it.
Yeah, okay.
And you did that by using a system of pulleys and ropes and stuff with that counterweight. And then once everything was set, you locked it into place. But I'm laughing, because I'm like, wait a minute, they didn't have the wheel, bro.
Yeah.
How do they have cams? But I'm not making fun of him. I'm actually making fun of the Egyptologists who think it was a portcullis system when they didn't have the wheel. Like, how do you raise and lower a portcullis system without wheels?
Right.
During my this is the last one. We gotta wrap it up here. During my conversations with Stephen Mailer and acoustical engineer Robert Walter, I discussed my theory of the antechamber. Walter confirmed my analysis that it was used as an acoustic filter and agreed that further studies are needed to quantify the exact physics employed via back engineering the dimensions of the King's chamber complex.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to wrap it up here.
Hey, I think you made good progress this time.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe one more.
Yeah.
We're almost done. No pun intended. All right. You guys can get a hold of us, brothersoftheserpent@gmail.com. Go to the website, brothersoftheserpent.com. Comment there. Look at the encyclopedia or the glossary. Check out the SnakeSkins. Buy a t-shirt. Support our pyramid scheme. Send us straight to pyramids with either one-time donation using the PayPal link or go to our Patreon. Also, give us reviews on iTunes. That would be great. Share the shows anywhere you can. Follow us on Twitter at SnakeBros with no vowels, SNKBRS. Check out the Facebook group run by Jordan. Thanks to him very much. Also, the Discord chat we have. Thanks very much, by the way, to Ryan from Kansas, who runs the Grimerica Discord. He has been helping us set up ours. Also, Jeff has been helping us a lot, and Brandon, of course. Jeff also runs the Library of the Serpent, which is a book list and a source of papers and documents that you can read. Also, History Shift, Brandon makes all of our YouTube videos. Follow him on Twitter at History Shift. Look him up on YouTube. Look us up on YouTube. And also, he has a website, historyshift.com. Also, follow Pod Doodles. This guy makes doodles while listening to podcasts, and you can watch him do it. It's really cool. So find him on YouTube as well. Also, don't forget about the Cosmographia podcast we do with Randall Carlson. Those are being posted on Geocosmic Rex, which is Brad's YouTube channel, and also on the Cosmographia channel. And the CAC 2020 Scablands trip with Randall is coming up this coming year. It's going to be in September, and it's going to be awesome. So if you want to go, talk to Darren at grimerica.com.
Yeah. And speaking of the pyramid scheme, we got an awesome Christmas present from Anne. She says, "Happy solstice. Favorite segments were Kyle reading news bits." So, blammo! Thank you very much, Warm and Fuzzies. And wow. Very nice donation. Wow. Thank you
so much. Also, real quick, thanks to Where Did the Road Go, Uncharted X, Mike and Maurice's Mind Escape, the C Word podcast, Grimerica, Conspiranormal Guys. Check out all those podcasts. They're great. And Uncharted X, of course, is on YouTube.
We also got another donation from Sean Johnson. He says, whoops. Doxed him. It'll just say Johnson. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
It says, "Merry Christmas, Snake Bros. I see pyramids in your future." Woohoo! So, thank you, buddy. And thanks to everybody else who donated and did not comment. We also appreciate all those.
That's right. Thank you guys so much.
Love you.
Yep, always have.
Always will.
Good night, Adamu. Get back to work.